So, I'm here with Steven Woolfe MEP, UKIP's immigration spokesman. So, Steven, what was the thing that attracted you to UKIP in the first place?
Well, I think for me, I've always been a believer in freedom and democracy and liberty, and it was very clear to me that at the beginning, UKIP was the party that offered that the most to me. And how did that generate itself? And that was because they were the only party that was actually actively fighting against the European Union. And from university, when I was a young lawyer, and I'd gone out to Brussels and I'd seen the early Parliament, I'd felt it was like some sort of religion out there. They actually enjoyed the fact that they wanted to take sovereignty away from our nation, and enjoyed the fact that they wanted to pool it under people who were not elected by our people or those who are the voters in any of the countries. And so that was principally, and that stems from my historical belief and research and the things that we have fought for as a country to get the right for us to be able to sit here and speak today.
Well, as you mentioned, one of the things that UKIP has won, so to speak, is the referendum on the European Union. Now, why do you think that the government has decided to scrap purdah for this referendum?
Well, I think it's absolutely clear they want to be illiberal, and in so many ways they're actually quite frightened that the people of this country might make a choice of coming back to our historical roots. I mean, in my speech today, I talked about the Levellers putting down the first manifesto for liberty, the first manifesto for parliamentary democracy and for universal suffrage. But we've had to fight all along the way, from the Pentridge Martyrs, the Chartists, to the suffragettes, for us to eke out slowly the opportunity to have every man and woman voting at the age of 18, and that was handed away from us when we went to the European Union. But some reason, governments seem to like that. They seem to enjoy it, and they will do whatever they can to make sure that they rig the vote in some way to support themselves. Purdah is one of those. The possibility that they will hold ministers to actually a single line of supporting the European Union and remaining in it are just another example, as well as the unfair funding aspects too.
Now, as you mentioned, you said you're a big believer in personal freedom and liberty, but obviously that one thing that attracted UKIP was being against the European Union.
Yes.
So, other than the European Union, what is a big issue that is close to your heart?
Well, I think for myself is when you then decide to take personal liberty from the democratic level of the European Union, you have to recognise that our nation's own democracy is not perfect. So I do believe that we've got to have reform of our political system, and I think what we've got there in Douglas Carswell, where we initially wrote the plan, that was a very attractive option to have the opportunities of rights of recall. And I do think that it was too easy for our MPs to sit in safe seats and never be challenged. I also think that we've got a problem in local government elections in the way that you've got similar ideas of safe seats and you've got fiefdoms. I come from Manchester. It's wholly unhealthy to have all the councillors in Manchester Labour, the Police and Crimes Commissioner as Labour, to even have the new mayor as Labour. And yet, so you've got so many voters out there who are disenfranchised. And that reform process is very important to me too. I'm patriotic. I believe in my country. I believe smaller states are better at being able to decide how we utilise scarce resources. So UKIP has a very clear plan of having a smaller government. We're not going to leave people behind, but we don't believe that everything should be managed by the state itself. I think we have to reduce some of the powers of the civil state and remove them down into the corporate state. But I'm not believing in a corporatism either. Let's get this right. Absolutely. The corporates are just as bad as the public servants because they work together to actually game the rules to give themselves both advantages, which loses out the small and medium-sized businesses, which I fundamentally believe generate the wealth and income and opportunities for people.
So if we look back to now to the general election in May, obviously it's extremely disappointing that UKIP only managed to get one MP. But as you talked about in your speech earlier, UKIP came second in many, many seats across the north of England. How feasible is it, do you think, that UKIP will be able to get a whole host of new MPs in 2020?
I think it's highly feasible. I mean, clearly we were disappointed, and I always be a selector of 6 to 8 seats that I thought we'd win this time round, and really close. You know, we came really close with Nigel, and we came really close with Tim. And we've learned enormous lessons from that about campaigning over a longer period of time. I think we also realised how to use our scarce resources. After all, we're not really highly funded like the other political parties, Labour and the Conservatives. Look at the millions the unions plough in to the Labour Party. So we need to work harder to do that. And we've got an enthused group of people that want to support our youth group and our organisations, and why our UC today are growing exponentially, and we've also got a very strong growth in the areas in the north of England. So we need to work hard. We need to make sure that we've got a refined message. We need to challenge those negativities that came out. I saw it on the door when I was knocking in Labour areas where they accused us of all sorts of things, which was just unbelievable. That will come. That's the rough and tumble of politics. But I actually think that in a longer time, with good strategy and good planning and a very clear message based on the honesty and the truth of the values of our party, will eventually win through.